All right, we're back with the Two Player Podcast. I'm Erik Kain.
I'm Paul Tassi.
And once again, we're going to talk about Game of Thrones. Right now, we're just kind of focusing on the show because there's really nothing going on in video game land. So lots going on in Game of Thrones land, however.
Yes,
what did you think of this last
content.
one? Endless content, exactly.
Yeah. No, I thought it was a very significant upgrade from the previous week. And I know we were like really down on that that one before, but I think there's probably a lot more positive stuff to say about this one.
Yeah, well, that makes for a boring podcast. I mean, just kidding. I totally agree. I think it was. I mean, I think they still are sort of falling into certain traps this season that I don't know that they'll stop falling into, because it seems like they've just kind of gone whole hog with the fast travel stuff.
Yeah, I think we have to stop thinking that that's going to cease and desist. And I don't know. That's one thing that I'm kind of willing to overlook at this point, just because I don't want 4 episodes of Jon Snow on a little boat.
Totally.
So I kind of get where they're coming from in that regard. But it is weird because it's been such a core part of like the show for so long, where these big, long travel sequences like between places with Arya and the Hound or Brienne and Jaime like traveling across the country, like that was a really kind of essential experience in plotline of the show. And I was just like,
yeah,
I'll just teleport and it'll be fine.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've started rewatching the show, actually. I think I've gotten now through the first 5 episodes of season 1. Okay. And it's kind of so like 2 things they do back in the beginning that are interesting. One thing is that whenever they're traveling somewhere, something happens, like significant moments, like Nymeria attacking Joffrey to protect Arya, and then the fallout from that, and Lady getting killed. That's on the road from Winterfell to King's Landing, and that's kind of a big deal. Or Catelyn running into Tyrion at the inn and having him arrested. That's obviously a huge deal. All these things happen, and then even smaller moments like Jon and Tyrion going to the Wall. They have some great conversation just on the way. It's a short scene, but they talk about why he reads books so much.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's all these little things that happen during travel. But then the other thing that they do that's kind of helpful, I feel like, is they say stuff about how long things take. Like she tells Ned, she says, Robert rode 30 days to get here. So we know, like, just because earlier in the same episode they say, Robert's coming. Well, the same episode he shows up, but we know that 30 days passed. So there's always this
caught that the first time. Okay.
Yeah, you don't really notice it because it's just a little detail. But what it does, I think, is it anchors you into the sense of time and distance in a way that the show now is just kind of like, now the Euron's fleet is attacking Grey Worm's fleet.
Got to get this done, so people are just going to be places and deal with it.
And then
teleporting armies, fleets, whatever.
and it would be. I think it would be less jarring still if we didn't then cut to like Jorah. Like the next day, basically.
Yeah, that's true.
It's
like, with the other scenes. Yeah.
What is the time frame now? And that's what's so confusing. I think that we could really probably forgive more if there was just a little consistency. It's not even the fast travel because I mean, like in the early season, like Catelyn goes all the way from Winterfell to King's Landing pretty quickly. Like it happens without seeing any of it. But we know because Ned just did that journey that it took her a long time also. Mm-hmm. We just have those sort of things that anchor us into the time. And I think that what they've done this season is they're like, to hell with all that. We're just gonna get all this out of the way. But that aside, I really liked this episode. It was very good.
Yeah, there was a lot that went right there, and I was really kind of worried about how the Daenerys Jon meeting would go. But I was happy with how that was handled. I thought they did a good job of that. And I've recently complained about the writing and how it's lacking, George R. R. Martin's touch, but I was very satisfied with that, and I thought they did a good job. Then I have my own thoughts that I think they're setting up a relationship with them, but I mean, we'll see if that pans out. But just, I mean, there was really good moments, like when Missandei reads all the titles, and then Davos is like, "Hey, it's Jon Snow."
Yeah.
Like that was a really good line. That was very well done.
It was great. I laughed out loud.
The whole kind of journey of their little micro relationship over the course of that episode, where it's kind of Tyrion kind of working both sides. Like these three really interesting characters that are kind of the core, pretty much the core pillars of the show is these three. And I think they really could have screwed up how that kind of dynamic worked, but I thought they actually did a really good job with it.
Well, yeah, and there was some good like callbacks to season 1, which I'm getting all these callbacks a lot more now that I'm watching. I think everyone should watch season 1 while they watch season 7 because it's so much being referenced during season 7 that's in season 1.
What were the callbacks in this episode?
Well, okay, so
sorry, there's a siren.
Instance, yeah. Well, you live in a city of crime, and
I also live next to a fire station, so this happens
that'll do it.
frequently.
Yeah, I'm surprised this doesn't happen more in our podcast.
I know.
So one interesting thing is, when Daenerys says to Jon, did your father know that King Robert was sending assassins to kill me? Well, I mean, in season 1 we have Eddard basically give up his job as Hand of the King in protest to that decision to try to assassinate Daenerys. So not only did he know about it, he put his entire reputation, his life, his everything on the line at a protest to it.
Yeah, but everyone who knows that is dead.
Except for Varys. Varys was there.
Was he there? Okay, yeah.
He was there. Yeah, he was there arguing to send the assassins, basically. Yeah. Which is interesting. I don't know. This is why I definitely recommend turning on season 1 again and going through it because, and another thing about season 1 is that, you wrote your article saying you missed Martin's writing, but you know what? There was some amazing non-book stuff in that season also. Like I just watched the episode where Robert and Cersei have this long conversation, and it's just an absolutely fantastic conversation. The dialogue is so good, and their interaction is so good, and that's not in the books, of course, because we never get in the first book we don't get a Cersei chapter or a Robert chapter. And there's another great scene in that same episode between Varys and Littlefinger. Again, we wouldn't get those chapters in the book, but these conversations.
Yeah, because I remember that scene, but I wonder if Martin was more directly involved in season 1 rather than just kind of this grand overseer. Because I know at least in a couple episodes in past seasons, he's written some of the episodes, I believe.
He has,
so
yes.
I'm wondering if any of that could have been him, just not necessarily from the books. But
I would have to check which one he did in season 1. I feel like it's not that one, but I could be wrong.
I mean, believe me, I'm no like show hater and think like, only the books are better. There's a lot wrong with the books that I think the show has done a very, very good job of fixing in a lot of ways and cutting out the fat. It's just seemed to me lately that things are getting a little weird in certain scenes. And like last week, there was probably like 6 scenes that were just so uncomfortable. And this week there's maybe like, I don't know, 1 or 2. So it was better. And one of the 1 or 2 was the Bran scene.
That was weird, right?
It was unnecessarily weird. Like, Bran, you have to understand that no one knows what the Three-Eyed Raven is, and you're just going to sound like a weirdo. That was just like, it should have been this like really happy reunion, and Bran was just like full zombie weirdo mode, which was not ideal. And he hasn't really been like that. In his plot line, like he's been interacting with Mira and the Raven and Hodor and was like expressing emotion, but I don't know. I'm not sure what his character's doing now.
What they needed to do was give us a scene establishing his change prior to this, I feel like, because it would have it could make sense, that he's losing his humanity somehow through all of this, but it would have been helpful if we'd seen that with Mira, beforehand.
Yeah, I agree.
And we just didn't. And so, it was like he brings up like the cruelest, most horrific thing
of all the memories you could have like pulled out. You're like, oh yeah, Sansa's horrific wedding day. Let's rehash that.
Yeah, and I wonder like if there is something more to it. Like could he be making a point in some way? Because somebody needs to remind her that was Littlefinger's fault. Yeah,
everybody seems to have kind of overlooked that, and I don't know. The whole Littlefinger situation is continuing to weird me out because like everyone's like, oh, I don't trust Littlefinger. Yet he's still just in the castle chilling. Like you would think that they'd like exile him or something, but he's still like, he's effectively king of the Eyrie, isn't he? So he's a pretty powerful dude. He's just kind of like hanging around Winterfell.
But that still is kind of a weird thing because the bannermen of the Vale weren't like Littlefinger loyalists by any means. he sort of strong-armed his way into all of that.
Right.
I feel like at a certain point, it wouldn't be very hard to be, to basically say, yeah, you're a scumbag and we're just going to oust you, Yeah,
you would think that, but now it's like, I don't even know if there's time for that to happen. They'll probably cram it into like a 10-minute scene of like, oh, Littlefinger finally makes the wrong move and he's dead in the end.
Yeah. Jamie will give him some poison.
Yeah. Yeah, they love their poison this episode. No more violent deaths. Let's just poison all the people. That'll be a lot more.
Yeah, that's
easier
an
to swallow,
thing.
no pun intended. I don't know. I thought that was fine. I thought the Ilaria Sands scene was actually pretty good. And like, I don't really need to see like, the mountain bash her face in. Like, I don't know. We've seen that before. But I thought Cersei's plan to just kind of poison her daughter and let her like, decay in front of her was pretty brutal.
Yeah.
Even if we're not seeing that outright.
No, I thought that was a great scene. I did think the scene between Olenna and Jamie was great.
That was a great scene. Yeah.
It's weird though. We had like a couple episodes ago, it was like, Clash of Queens going on. It was like girl power, the matriarchy coming to save the day. And now it's like, okay, now they're like the Sand Snakes are all dead. Ilaria is pretty much out of the picture. The Queen of Thorns is dead. We lost a lot of strong female characters in one fell swoop, largely thanks to Cersei.
The key conflict is still Cersei versus Daenerys, so I guess there's still strong ones there. But yeah, that was kind of sudden. I mean, Olenna Tyrell seemed kind of that was kind of inevitable, given that pretty much her entire family is dead and they're not really good at fighting anyway. So I did like that whole scene where like Tyrion thinks he's being clever with his like invasion of Casterly Rock, and he's surprisingly outsmarted by Jaime and Euron and Cersei, which that's something you would not see coming given how smart Tyrion usually is. So that was one scene where I'm like, oh, we're back to like the, manipulation and like dodging and weaving and like, which doesn't have to do with dragons or White Walkers like that. I really liked that kind of interplay with actual kind of military strategy. And Bronn came back. That was nice to see him, even if he didn't do anything.
Yeah, he rode. And
I wondered where he was, but...
Yeah, I love Bronn. It reminded me a bit of the Sept of Cersei just taking out a huge chunk of her enemies all in one fell swoop, and here she does it again. Just takes out a bunch of enemies all in one fell swoop. Maybe a little less like dramatic, but
yeah.
Yeah, so I guess, I predicted that Cersei would have, she was really outnumbered and overwhelmingly weak compared to Daenerys, but I said she'd have a trick up her sleeve, and she had like 5 tricks up her sleeve.
Whole book of tricks.
One of which is Euron, and we're just going to leave aside the magical fleet and the teleportation, but I liked Euron in this episode.
No, I'm really starting to like Euron now. I was like, what is this character going to be? And like, you think he's like, oh, he's the new Joffrey or Ramsay, and you're just going to despise him. But he's like a fun villain. He's like Captain Hook, where
yeah,
I mean, he's hilarious. Like, you're not exactly rooting for him, but I think he's a well written character. He's certainly more well written than he was in the books, where he's this like big weirdo. But here he's like kind of goofily charming and charismatic. Yeah.
He's Ragnar Lothbrok in early Vikings. Like,
that's a good analogy.
Partly because he is, Danish and he's got the accent, but also he's just a little wild, a rogue, and willing to really poke Jaime. I thought that was Jaime's face when he jokes with him about like tips for what to do.
That was
Cersei.
really funny.
Does she like it gentle? Does she like it rough? Jaime's like, what?
Excuse
me.
Like,
yeah, it's kind of hilarious. I wonder, I'm still wondering, if we look at the prophecy, Cersei's prophecy, her little brother kills her, right? And that could be either Jaime or Tyrion.
Is that the prophecy? I always thought the prophecy was some like beautiful princess or something doing something to her.
Well, I'm going to look it up and read it, but no, it's that also. All right, so this was Maggie, the old Maggie the Frog, Maggie the old lady that gives Cersei a prophecy when she's young. The dialogue is, Cersei, when will I wed the prince? Maggie says, never. You will wed the king. Cersei says, I will be queen, though? Maggie, aye, queen you shall be, until there comes another, younger and more beautiful, to cast you down and take all that you hold dear. And then Cersei asks, will the king and I have children? And Maggie says, oh, aye, 6 and 10 for him, and 3 for you. Gold shall be their crowns, and gold their shrouds, she said. And when your tears have drowned you, the Valonqar shall wrap his hands about your pale white throat and choke the life from you. And Valonqar in High Valyrian means little brother.
Okay.
So, I mean, the prophecy is basically all your children will die. Some other queen will come who's younger and more beautiful to cast you down, and then your little brother will kill you. And I think how Cersei's interpreted this a long time has been the younger and more beautiful could be Sansa, could be Marjorie, and so she's distrusted every other woman that's younger and more beautiful because she needs to take everything away.
Declared war on her outright, so that one seems pretty obvious.
This one seems obvious now, but I think for her, for a long time, it wasn't. And then also, I think she's thought little brother, Valonqar, is Tyrion, which is why one reason she's hated him so much. And of course,
it's got to be Jaime. That's got to be like a twist where
it's got to be, right?
Tyrion would be too obvious. I don't know.
yeah, I agree. I'm not sure Tyrion will ever even see Cersei again.
I would imagine there'll be a confrontation before the end, but
there
I'm not
may
sure
be.
in what context. Cersei's not going to win the war. I don't know if anyone's going to win the war, but Cersei certainly isn't going to in the long run.
I think so. With Jaime, if Jaime is the one who kills her, there's got to be some huge provocation, right? And I think it's either got to do with Euron or it's got to do with Tyrion. I could see Jaime, like, if it came down to it and it was between Tyrion or Cersei, like if he had to make a hard choice, going with Tyrion. I don't know. It's a tricky one.
Yeah, I don't know. You really, and he loves her, so I'm not sure, but I don't know if that would be the exact conflict, but something along those lines for sure.
Or maybe it'll come back to her like wanting to burn the whole city, like a repeat of the Mad King.
Of like the straight up Mad King repeat, but that would be a little too neat, but we'll see.
I mean, she is kind of the Mad Queen now in a lot of ways.
Well, yeah, I know. I love she's giving lectures about like, oh, the mad daughter of the Mad King, when she's like, you just blew up the set. Like,
I know, right? That was interesting. That seemed also a little tidy to me that she was able to just kind of get all these allies, who the sworn bannermen of House Tyrell and stuff. It just, I don't know. I mean, again, it's one of those things you can kind of look over, but
yeah.
So what did you think of like? We finally get to see Casterly Rock and Highgarden and stuff.
Briefly.
I'm
sure a lot of work went into that CGI. No, I mean, I thought that was cool. I wish we got to kind of spend a little more time there. And I wish this wasn't like the first real time we've been there. But I liked kind of the way that whole battle scene was orchestrated, where we don't need like a 40-minute epic, Battle of the Bastards type thing. But I thought the way they did it was effective and probably cost effective to a certain extent. Yeah. I don't blame them for saving their resources for probably the last 2 episodes or whatever they're going to do. The Casterly Rock plan always did seem a little weird to me, because I'm like, okay, if no one's there and there's not really any valuable resources there, like it just seemed like a point of pride for Tyrion, like, haha, like, I'm taking over my homestead. And even when he suggested that initially, I wasn't sure of the tactical significance, given that there didn't seem to be like there would be that many people there. But
yeah, and it may be a point of pride for him. I mean, that may be one of his shortcomings.
No pun intended.
No pun intended. Yeah, and he doesn't have many. I mean, he's smart, he's kind, he's lots of good things, but he does have a wounded pride over his upbringing.
Yeah, I mean, it might not even have been like a conscious decision. He might have been thinking it was the right move, but kind of under the surface, it was wrong. But
yeah, oh yeah. I wish we'd seen more Highgarden, because it really didn't look like sort of the grand castle that it was supposed to be. I really thought Casterly Rock looked great. It was a cool castle up on the cliffs. Sansa, I understood her reaction with Bran. That was all very strange. I found their playing up of Sansa's leadership skills a little funny. She's like, we need food for winter. And it's like, yeah, no shit.
You're such a good leader.
She's like, are they putting leather on those breastplates? Those stupid smiths, they don't know what they're doing.
That was a weird moment. So I'm like, is that supposed to be like some greater significance? Or is it just like...
It's just because it's going to be cold.
Oh, okay.
I guess they should have leather.
I was like, that's a really kind of weird aside, but all right, I guess it's just showing that Sansa knows warmth.
Lots of stuff. Yeah. She knows everything better than everyone else there. Yeah, they're sort of playing up her great leadership, managerial skills, whatever.
Well, in like the dream Game of Thrones perfect world ending where Jon and Daenerys are married as king and queen of, the realm, and then Sansa can be warden of the north, and like I don't know. I don't foresee that happening actually, but I also don't really think they're developing this, because I've heard like this thing about how Sansa's going to get turned against Jon, and I don't know. We've seen them like sparring and stuff, but I don't think that she's on that severe of a track to just like totally what side with Littlefinger. Like I don't know what it would take for her to side with Littlefinger at this point. It just seems that seems kind of implausible to me. Like I could have maybe bought that if that was being better set up, but just everyone still hates Littlefinger, and like Sansa fundamentally still loves Jon and the North. And
yeah, I agree.
I think that would be a very bad plot turn, like just for the sake of being shocking. Like I would not really like that.
I agree. I completely agree. I think it would be extremely implausible. I think it's much more plausible that Jon and Daenerys end up together, even though I think that that's weird and creepy if they really are aunt and uncle, or aunt and
it's Game of Thrones. Those kind of things don't matter.
I hope if they do get hooked up like that they never find out that they're actually related, and then they have like weird twisted children, and like the end is just their weird twisted children like being creepy and awful. Yep, and we just realize that even though they've won, the good guys have won, like their progeny is going to be like worse than Joffrey, and just
can't really foresee that happening, but maybe.
Yeah, the last scene will just be like their son like
it's like Joffrey comes back, like it's like the actor returns. Well, that was one of the fundamental questions I had, was like I don't really understand how it's even possible for, I guess, Jon or anyone else to know his true history, because like the obvious answer is Bran tells him, but I mean, are you really going to believe Bran? I mean, in his mystical prophetic abilities, like would that be enough as proof? And the whole thing about like, who's a bastard, who's father, like we did this with Ned's thing. We're like, oh, all of Robert's bastards have black hair and these kids have golden hair. Like even that wasn't like proof enough for anybody. Right. You know what I mean? So right. I kind of wonder how this is even going to end up being revealed to the characters of the show. Whereas, we, the audience, like know it and it's weird, but I'm trying to foresee a situation where they would find out in a way that they would genuinely believe it. Like Jon is resistant to fire or something. I don't know, but
yeah, that's a possibility. That would still not necessarily answer the question.
Didn't he get burned like 5 seasons ago doing something? Like, didn't he grip something that was hot and get burned?
I don't know.
I swear there was a moment like that, like way back when, where he this fire thing already got kind of negated. But maybe not. Maybe I'm remembering wrong.
I think you're thinking of Ygritte. Like she's a fiery redhead, and he got burned.
Yes, common mistake.
The other thing is, can Bran show people visions?
That would be useful.
Because what I would love to see is the actual flashback to what happens with Rhaegar and Lyanna, like when they run off together. I want to
really
see that
important
happen.
Because they still haven't really resolved whether that was like consensual or like were they really in love, or was she kidnapped and like forced, or
yeah.
I think that's been both pretty unclear in both the show and the books. So unless I've missed something, but I thought the implication was that they were like kind of secretly in love, and like she didn't really want to be with Robert and was, fell in love with Rhaegar, but I don't know. I could be wrong.
Well, it's interesting because, of course, in the first season, we get like that scene I was talking about earlier between Robert and Cersei. She asks him about Lyanna, and apparently she's never asked him about her before. And he talks about her and says that she was the only thing in the world he ever wanted, and when she was taken from him, he could never fill that void again. And it sort of helps explain why he is such a piece of crap. He's just a drunkard, womanizing. He doesn't give a crap about being king, and it's sort of explained by this hole in his heart that was Lyanna. But and then he says to Ned at one point he wishes he could, every day he imagines killing him again, because of course Robert did kill Rhaegar in the end. But then later, of course, we get stuff from Barristan saying, Rhaegar was a poet and beloved by everyone and just nothing at all like his father. So it seems very unlikely that he would just randomly kidnap Lyanna, right?
That's what I thought too. I mean, who are you going to believe? Like Robert or, all these other accounts of Rhaegar, yeah.
Yeah, so then, but for it to be properly, it just has to be, we have to know, right? We have to be told or shown what happened. I just feel like it would be extremely unsatisfying to go through the entire show without that being resolved.
I feel like Bran could be able to show people stuff. I mean, the Three-Eyed Raven was showing him stuff, but that was because he was the potential Three-Eyed Raven. So I don't know if you can just do that with a random person or not, but maybe. I mean, that would actually be a good solution. You couldn't really dispute that kind of, reliving the memory or whatever.
Yeah, it'll actually be at the wedding between Jon and Daenerys and Bran, and they'll be like, anyone who has an objection, speak now. And Bran will be like, whoa, hold on, guys.
I need to show everyone something.
And he's got like a projector set up, and he's like puts it up there. He's like using his magic projector screen. And they're like, oh,
I mean, to be fair, the Targaryens were like marrying each other for like generations, so I doubt it would be that weird, but
I mean, but do you think Jon would be okay with like getting together with his aunt? I feel like he is so much not a Targaryen. He's so very Stark, I don't know if he would be cool with that.
Yeah, I would just wonder if this is even going to be a question of like, is Jon grossed out enough to like not be in this relationship? I just don't foresee that being an issue, but yeah, I mean, maybe.
Yeah. I don't know. It'll be interesting.
I wonder if both of them will survive to the end of the series, but I guess that's a question for another day.
I always feel so like if like looking at Walking Dead, when they fake death Glenn. Sorry, spoilers here for Walking Dead people. They fake death Glenn and the dumpster and everything, and I was like, okay, well he's died once. It's like stupid to kill him off again. Like that would be so cheap, and that's how I feel. And then they did it, of course, and that's how I feel about Jon. They killed him once. He came back from the dead.
It's like hard to think that they're going to kill Jon again.
It just seems so cheap, I guess.
It would have to be like after he fulfilled a prophecy or something. Like, I don't know, like maybe then, he sacrifices himself to kill the Night's King or something like that. Like that I could see happening maybe, but he's not just going to get like randomly killed by Littlefinger or something. You know what I mean?
Oh God, that'd be terrible.
Yeah.
I've also heard some theory, and I didn't really look into it much, but some theory that Jon like becomes the Night King. Have you heard that one?
No. I mean, I guess I can see where that's coming from, but I don't know. That reminds me of the theory like that Jon was going to come back to life like as Ghost.
Yeah.
Like that was how he survives his killing, but
then he definitely couldn't hook up with Daenerys unless the show got really weird.
Well, then she'll come back as a dragon, and then they'll
and they'll have like little dragon wolf babies that are like out of Shrek.
Yeah.
Oh Lord. Yeah. All right. So the Queen's Justice, it was really the Queen's Revenge. Pretty good episode. I mean, some people are saying it's like I've seen some reviews out there. They're like, this is the best episode ever. And I don't think that.
Let's calm down. It's like the best episode in probably this season out of 3.
Yes, definitely. Best episode of the season. That reminds me, like, I remember when Winds of Winter, or I mean, Dance with Dragons came out. Not Winds of Winter. Winds of Winter hasn't come out. That came out, and like all these book critics were like, this is the greatest book George R. R. Martin's ever written. It's the best in the series. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, no, this is
certainly not.
It is just not even close.
Yeah.
We all know that was a feast for crows. Just kidding. No, I think it was like, I think there's this desire among some critics to, when something's good and we haven't had it in a while, to just sort of sing its praises way too loud. And so, we hadn't had a new book in 5 years. So this new book came out and everyone's like so happy that they get to read the new book that of course it's the best book ever written but it's not.
Right. Yeah.
Nothing has come close to, and here's what I wrote in my last article is that I don't think anything will come close to the quality of Storm of Swords or the season 3, season 4 of the show in terms of just drama, intensity, give a damn, all. Will we ever have another moment that's as big as the Red Wedding? I just don't think so.
Well, the problem is like you get like the Ned moment, the Red Wedding moment, and now you're almost expecting huge things, and then so if there are additional huge things, they're not going to be quite as impactful as the original huge things. So it kind of comes with the territory to a certain extent, regardless of whether or not the twists are interesting. But
yeah, and I think also because we're getting into Endgame and we're getting into high fantasy, things have just really shifted. If stuff like what happened in this last episode took place in the beginning of the show, it would have been played out over quite a lot longer, I think. Well,
we're even we're conditioned now to kind of expect these things. So now we're discussing, is Jaime going to kill Cersei, or is Sansa going to betray Jon? So if those things happen, we've already kind of considered them. But I don't think anyone would have considered that the Red Wedding would happen kind of the way it did. And totally. They just murder these two. That was just so out there. I mean, maybe the series is still capable of something that massive, but it doesn't seem like it. But
yeah, the final showdown will be between Cersei and the Night King. And she'll just burn up all the White Walkers. She'll just glare at him and he melts. Yeah, we could still be surprised. I just think that at a certain point, the show has to kind of wrap up, and as it's wrapping up, we've already had such high points. I'm not sure that it's going to necessarily kind of be the same kind of surprises that we saw before.
I mean, I don't know, and that could be fine, but it's still, vastly better than pretty much everything else on TV. So.
Oh, totally. Yeah, and I think I'm really looking forward to when we do get to the real end game against the White Walkers and whatnot. I mean, think back to that Hardhome episode when Jon goes to save the wildlings, and that was just awesome. That whole battle, him dueling like a White Walker with his Valyrian steel blade. The dead coming to the gates. It was so great, and I think we have a lot more of that.
That and Battle of the Bastards, they've got a lot to top this season or next season if they're going to be, because those were so well done that I think we just got a little tease this week with the kind of mini battles, but I think they're planning something probably pretty huge. Yeah,
and we have 4 more episodes. So real quick before we wrap this up. Where do you see this season going as we head into season 8 after this? We have 4 more episodes to kind of set the stage for season 8. What's going to happen?
My guess, the one thing I'm willing to predict is that by the end of this season, the wall will fall. Yeah. And then it'll be kind of no one can ignore the White Walkers at that point. I don't know if the conflict with Cersei will be resolved at that point, or if she'll be kicked off the Iron Throne. In 4 episodes, I don't think so, but it's hard to know exactly what's going to happen. But my guess is that the big finale will be the wall coming down. But they might say that for next season. I don't know.
How does it fall?
The White Walkers have some sort of ancient magic. Wasn't there? Maybe this was a book thing. Wasn't there some horn that was magical that could knock down the wall? I don't know. Maybe they bust that out. There's all these horns that do all these things.
That's such a Deus Ex Machina, though.
It is, but yeah.
I mean, yeah. If that was introduced in the books, of course, back when Mance Rayder had it. He had the horn.
Yeah, but they haven't set that up at all.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe just the Night's King's been gathering power for 1,000 years, and now he's able to do it, or something. I don't know. There could be a lot of kind of hand wavy explanations there, but.
If Martin had just been more political, he, and I know he is a political guy, but he really should have, instead of winter coming, should have had climate change coming, and the wall just would have melted. And that would have solved everything. The wall melts, the White Walkers come.
That's the finale. It's a dream of spring. Everything melts.
Yeah. Also, when are they going to? I want to see the winter really come. It's been coming. It's cold now. There's snow at Winterfell, but I want to see like the deep drifts of snow and the endless night and all that stuff.
I don't think they're going to go that nuts with it. I mean, maybe in a couple shots, but I don't think they're going to get to a point where they just bury everything in 40 feet of snow and no one can go anywhere, because then the show just stops moving and they can't do anything. So I think this might be maybe as wintry as we get to a certain extent, where just it's snowing everywhere now. It might snow in King's Landing at some point or somewhere really far south, but I don't know if we're going to see 80-foot drifts of snow or anything.
That'd be cool though.
It would be cool.
And just like if the wall comes down and the snow is really high and it just gets dark and it never gets light and there's like zombie army marching across the land. I mean, that could set up some really cool stuff where people are having to escape. People are, there's another siege of Winterfell basically, but this time with an army of the dead. And I don't know. There's so much potential there for really interesting stuff with Winter. I hope it comes sooner than later. I think you're right about the wall falling also. But I don't know about Cersei. I feel like they're going to keep Lena Headey on as long as they can.
I don't think they can kill Cersei before the final season. I don't know.
Yeah.
That would seem wrong to me. I mean,
then again, they need some big like resolution in season 7, right? And at the end of season 6, we got rid of.
If season 8 or whatever we're in, like, if the last season is just like everybody versus the White Walkers, that's going to be really boring. So I almost don't know if they can kill Cersei, because then it's, I mean, who's left at that point? The White Walkers and Littlefinger. I mean,
at a certain point though, we do need to have just the White Walkers as the bad guys, right? Like we need to have that
very,
final
very,
conflict.
very end, but not like for all of season, 8. But
yeah. Oh well, we'll see.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's it for us today. Do we know what the episode next week's called?
I haven't looked. The script leaked, so it might be on that.
Yeah. Everyone's saying that the script, like, for the whole season already leaked, like, last year, but I haven't seen that.
You never know. I mean, I'm just, even if it's like that was fake or not real, like, I just have avoided it completely, so.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it looks like things are heating up. I watched the preview, and we have, Daenerys basically saying, I'm tired of waiting around and playing nice, so.
Yeah.
We should hopefully get some good action. I mean, it's sort of weird. Like with 10 episodes, you can have a lot of wiggle room, but with 7 episodes, things kind of have to heat up quickly and come to a head pretty quickly.
Yeah, exactly.
So, all right. Well, we are the Two Player Podcast, and Erik, Kain, and Paul Tassi. And thanks for listening. All of our predictions will come true. See ya.